Welcome to the show, and I'm so glad to have you here. This is a place where everyone is welcome. And so make yourself comfortable and enjoy my guest, who I'm so excited about. Matthew McCaulley, you are doing things to shake stuff up in this world, and I appreciate it a lot. You're touching subjects that don't normally get touched in media and just putting it out there, being authentic and putting it out there. You're a writer, you're a producer, you're a director, you're everything creative and wonderful and great. And aerospace engineering, really, is that really your my word? Anyway, we're going to dive into all of that. But first, I want to know. So before you became the man that you are today, what was 7-year-old Matthew like?
Oh wow, you went all the way back to seven, huh? I grew up in Indiana, long way from here. I'm in Missouri now. I loved airplanes growing up. Wanted to become an aerospace engineer or a pilot or something. Became both. Just loved that. Went down a road of getting my pilot's license in high school, and then went to Purdue and got an engineering degree, and went and worked for Lockheed for a while, and had a lot of fun. That was great. Um, and that was kind of my 7-year-old self. Remember as a kid, though, going to see some of the things I remember seeing: Star Wars, Batman, the original, just all these epic movies. And just some of the things that it just made you feel. I always remember this like amazed this power, this like cinema like has this like power to move people, and
Mm.
just kind of really sat there, my whole life really. And then I don't know, it wasn't until we moved to Missouri, my wife and son and I, in 2005 to help plant a church here with a friend who's a pastor, and working on like I just kind of drug into a project with a homeless shelter here in town, and it was a video project, and something happened to my brain. And I think I said, I want to do this. I want to do more of it. And um, long story short, I ended up being, I'm a full time filmmaker now, and loving every minute of it. So yeah,
Wow, go you, go you. Okay, so aerospace engineer and pilot to filmmaker, that's probably not a normal transition, but I guess to be an engineer, maybe you got to be creative. And so maybe that's the tie-in. I've got a son who works for NASA.
wow,
Yeah,
there you
yeah,
go, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
a nuclear and electrical
okay.
engineer. He's got
Yeah,
2 degrees, and so it's sort of the creme de la creme in his field, I think,
yeah,
is to be there. He likes it a lot. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a fun business. That must have been fun working for.
Yeah, I think honestly, I really think all that helped prepare me for what I'm doing now. Filmmaking really is very creative, but it's also very technical. And I've always been the kind of person who can kind of ride the line right down the middle, And I understand the technical people, and I understand the creative people, and I think that's it's a gift. I praise God for that. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, going from one ride to another ride, I guess, in a way. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the films that you're making, the impact that you're having on the world, and the impact that you will continue to have and will grow, and all is amazing. I want to start by talking about The Substitute,
Mm.
because that was so, so powerful. It's a short film, won some awards, which it is very deserving of winning some awards. But what made you come up with that theme and want to do that movie?
Yeah, I we have a team. I guess I'll preface that whole thing by saying Light of Life Films, which is our production company, actually started as a ministry of our church. It is now its own company owned by the church. That we can get into that, I guess, if you want. Um, but So we started there with a team, and we just prayed a lot and said we want a strong message, something that's entertaining, but going back to when I was a kid, just that power, to take somebody who's being entertained, but yet at the same time really grip them with a strong message. And so yeah, that's what we ended up coming up with that.
Yeah, yeah, and it is. It's just a great message. Everybody out there should watch it. It's available on your website.
Yes.
And so it's easy to find and easy to go view. And it's, like I said, it's a short film, but it's packed with power and meaning, and it really just kind of you know how there's those things that you go, ah, now I really see, right? Like it's one of those, oh yeah, now I really see the substitute. Now I really see
Right.
in a different way, in a fuller way, perhaps,
Right.
that what Jesus did for us. And so that's just yeah,
Yeah.
great, powerful message. Yes. And so here you are, this creative guy, and I totally agree with you. There is something about going to the movies, there's something about watching the movies that you can just be transported to a whole different place, that you just forget that you're even at the movies. You forget that you're even there, except you're eating popcorn, I guess. I don't know. But but you get this sort of out of body experience, and the power of that. Like there's power in that, right? And
Yeah.
so it's got to be sort of like you're holding people,
Yes.
and so you got to be careful how you hold them,
Right.
right?
It's absolutely, yeah. You really, I've had so many people talk to me about Undefiled, our current feature film, and just they want to all tell me what it did to them. That's the interesting. I find that so interesting. I don't very often get, well, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. I really, that doesn't happen nearly as much as, hey, this one part really made me feel like this, and that's the power you're talking about right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely one of those movies that you want to talk about. That's the thing too, right? Like sometimes you leave the movie and you're like, oh, that was cool, that was fun, that was funny, whatever. But it's almost like you need to just go to a coffee shop after you watch the movie and digest it with somebody and talk about it,
Right.
because you pack a lot into it. It's
Right.
not it's not a lot in that it's overwhelming to watch. Like it's absolutely digestible, but there's so many sub themes kind of running throughout that are so powerful, and the messages that are so powerful, and the characters
Hmm.
that are so powerful. So often in a film, there's a character, a couple characters that maybe you relate to, or that maybe are just you're wondering what's going on in their head. But in Undefiled, every character is I don't even know. Like, I want to know the backstory of every
Yeah.
single character, right? And
Right.
then the after story. It's because they're all so deep and rich, and great job casting.
Oh,
Awesome,
thank you.
awesome cast. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Fun
Casting
story.
is
Yeah.
terrifying. I, it's the most fun, almost the most fun part of the whole process, and it's the most terrifying at the same time. So, um, yeah,
Just
what you said
want to
is
get
so
it
true.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What you said is so true. Yeah, the all of those things that you talked about, those were all actual designed in. We have a psychologist who he and I kind of actually the whole project started with us, but he's a Christian psychologist who's dealt with the subject of pornography and treated patients that way for probably 15, 20 years. And he and I were the whole time just really trying to understand. I wanted to really understand, where does that come from? Why do they think the way that they do? Why does that happen? Who's this person? Um, why do they feel that certain way? And just really, and that took years. That took The whole project was a 5 or 6 year endeavor, and so a big chunk of that was just all the upfront research and the character research. And
Yeah, wow. Well, and I spoke with Stephanie, who plays Amber Jennings, and she said that you kind of came at it from a different direction. Like, a lot of times it's, I want to make a film and we can do this with it, and instead it was, what can we do? Or you can explain it way better than me, so go ahead.
yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. Our production company, really, our MO is, let's tackle hard things, but let's not leave people hanging. In other words, so like we talked about, you know, powerful, let's move them, but at the same time, once they're moved and just stirred up, like you were in Undefiled, um, let's give them a place to go after that. Let's give them the next steps, and let's not just hope that they get to where they need to go, but let's actually give it to them. And so, a huge chunk of what we've done is partnering with ministries, Pure Desire Ministries, and Boulder Recovery, or Begin Again Institute, are some of them, and actually developing curriculum. We have an 8-part video series that goes along with it after the film, and other things as well. And so your head's spinning. What do I do? I'm thinking about this a week later. Maybe I'm convicted about something, or maybe it makes me think, you know what? I really need to address that. I see that in myself, or a wife might say, I see that in my husband, or whatever. And we've given them the next steps, and
Mhm.
really important steps.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but your attitude was, would a film help, rather than, I just want to make a film. It's
Right.
what could a film do? Would a film help? And I admire that. That's pretty cool. So for people who haven't seen Undefiled, we better unpack it a little bit, because they're like, what, at Boulder, who, what's going on? So anyway, it's this a baseball movie. Who doesn't love a great baseball movie? And but you can go ahead and give the synopsis. Mine might be too long, so you go right ahead.
I don't know. Mine comes out different, like every time and I don't know. I think Undefiled has been described. I saw it described once as fictional, but very real, and I really like that description of it. I don't even know who said that, but I really like that description because I think that fits really well. It is a fictional story about a ball player who has a very troubled past, a very troubled childhood, who is really has identity issues, looking for, how can I be important in life? Falls upon addiction. His just happens to be pornography, um, broken family, all kinds of things thrown at him. And then at some point has to make a decision. Am I going to keep watching my life circle the drain, or am I going to do something about it? And we see him make a certain decision. We see others alongside him make different decisions, compare and contrast. And how he gets to that point in the story is very extraordinary. And yeah, it really, all of it, like we talked about, is really designed to make the viewer think, even if they don't like the movie, even if it's like, oh, I hated that, still they're thinking about it. It's thinking, and that was the design. That's by design.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine anybody not liking it. It's so well done, and like we were talking about, the cast is so good, and they all do such a great job, and every part of it is just so real, so believable. And even though it's fiction, it's based on reality. It's based on truth, and so it's eye-opening in so many respects. But even starting with the dad, with Mr. Jennings, and that relationship. There are so many people that's their story, right? That they just come from this home either with no dad, or an abusive dad or a not present dad, even if he lives at home. But what a huge impact a father, negative or positive, has on a kid, and probably especially a son,
Yeah.
and then how that carries throughout their life.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah, you
well,
could see in the movie that formed him really, that father, that in this case negative father influence, really. I mean, that set him up for failure really. And like you said, all too true in reality. And I think almost every guy out there, and I think women as well, but I think almost every guy will relate to some aspect of one of those characters, even if it's not all of it, and even if it's not his main problem or whatever. I think almost everybody's like, oh yeah, I kind of feel that. And reason being is I wrote it. A lot of it was things that I related to as a person, as a human, and so
mm,
um,
right, right. Well, and I think you're so spot on with that, because even if you're a good dad, you're it might make you think, "Guy, I need to spend even more time with my kids, I need to be even more present for my wife," whatever it is, because we can take people for granted in our lives, and this movie will say, "Don't take people for granted," right? But be there. I've talked to a couple people lately, Matthew, that have it started ministries that are so amazing, for boys, for boys who don't have a dad in the home, or the dad's just not present, whatever it is, because being a single mom is not an easy life at all. And they just started these men's ministries where the men just once a month they go in and do something outside. They go fishing, they go shoot a bow and arrow, they do things that a kid might do with his dad. And meanwhile, the mom is working so hard just to keep the family together. She doesn't probably have time to go fishing and archery, whatever. And it's just so important, that relationship, to for even if it's not a dad, but a man, a mentor that a kid can look up to, is so
yes.
important. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I have a good friend, uh, John Boyd, who's on staff at our church as a pastor, and he goes just a couple blocks down to the local school every week and does the same thing. He'll sit with just a young guy, just a young boy who, at lunch or helps him read or whatever, and because they don't have anything at home, they don't. There's no dad at home.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
huge, huge impact. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and this is a Christian show, we're getting our Jesus on here. And um there are a lot of people that are in churches every Sunday and maybe wondering if they could do more, or maybe wondering how much they can golf more. I don't know, whatever. But the reality is everybody should do something.
yes,
Whatever it is, right? Volunteer somewhere, do something. But men, it can be so easy for women. We help with the lunches, we help with the homeless, we do the whatever. Women tend to get uh involved and volunteer more so than men do. And sometimes I think men are wondering, well, what could they do?
mhm,
Is there something for them? And the
yes,
answer is yes, there is something for them. And it doesn't even have to be an organized something,
yeah,
but you can just look around and see, what family maybe could use a little support, what kid could use some encouragement, and use a little something you got to offer, and give some time. I mean, if it's an hour a week, which is nothing, right? It could change somebody's life, change the whole trajectory of their life.
oh yeah,
So, yeah, yeah. So I
yeah.
certainly encourage people to do that. Like, help out, help out. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think what you just said is so big. I think everybody's looking for oh, I need to find a program or a this or that, but it's really just having a friend and helping him out and going over and helping him with his car on Saturday or whatever, and that's just uh, living life with them basically. That's the key. Yeah, I like the way you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's true.
Mhm.
So it gets into, so Defiled gets into the porn industry. And I'll be honest with you, there's something about it that I was not aware of. I did not understand at all the hand in hand walk that sex trafficking has with the porn industry. I had no idea. And so I think often it can be looked at as a victimless thing, like, oh, the people on the screen, they're getting paid, they want to do it, so if I watch it, what's the harm? Nobody's getting hurt. But the reality is everybody's getting hurt. You're hurting yourself,
Yes.
you're hurting your relationships, you're hurting. So why did you choose pornography, and what do you hope people do learn about it?
Yeah, I'll try to unpack. That's a big question, but it's a great question though, because what you just hit on is the word just. I can't tell you how many times we've heard the word just. In fact, when we were approaching people in the beginnings stages of the film, the development stage, this is what we want to do. We want to do a movie that touches on pornography, and possibly it's linked to trafficking. And oh, don't do that. It's just porn. That's not hurt. It's just you keep hearing that over and over again. And like you said it so well. The It's not just hurting everybody; it's hurting you, the viewer of porn as well. And that's not just Christian, just religious type of statistics. These are well known, well studied things, and so it does things to your brain. And so, but yeah, early on, I was given statistics by Dr. Wisman, our psychologist on staff there, who we were having coffee, and he said, "Well, let me tell you this." He said, 2016 Barna survey, a very reliable survey, said that 68% of church-going men viewed porn on a regular basis. So that was in 2016. So almost 70% of the guys sitting in church on Sunday morning engaging with it on a regular basis. And that's not the shocking one. The shocking one is that 50% of pastors do the same. And so that one, that one still kind of leaves me speechless. And like I said, that was 2016 stats. They're redoing the survey, but I can't even imagine what it is.
Well, right, exactly, because the industry is growing.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
like it's dying, and it would be nice that if it would, but yeah. So, man, those numbers are
Yeah.
staggering and heart wrenching, really. And I'm trying to think of what to even relate it to. Like if you go to the grocery store and you just go, I don't have to pay for this bread and milk today. I
Yeah.
can just take it. It's not hurting anybody. It's not, well, yeah, it is. It is hurting. It's hurting the shop owner that you're stealing it from. It's hurting, that everybody else, because now everybody else has to pay higher prices because you're stealing food. And so they've got to make up for that, right? It's hurting you because if you live that life, it's not a good life to live. Like,
Mhm.
and porn is that times 100 times 1,000 times 1,000,000. I mean,
Yeah.
it relationships, marriages end because of it. Relationships crumble. The way you feel about yourself, everything about it, from the take it in end, but also the people on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a man who's now a pastor who was the top guy. He won the award, because they have awards, the industry does, adult film star of the year. And he was the top dog, and he uh, almost committed suicide. He
Yep.
came super close to committing suicide, and the suicide rate is huge because nobody really wants to be doing this.
Right.
They get sucked in. People are groomed for it. People are told the right things, and whatever. And then once you get in it, it's like you're kind of stuck in it. and it's hard to get out of it. Apparently,
Yeah.
he had to pay a lot of money actually
Yeah.
to get out
Yeah.
of it. And it is not a glamorous, wonderful industry from that end. And then to know on top of it, it's not just people that have an apartment and go home, they've got family, whatever, and are being groomed, but they're modern day slavery, right? The sex trafficking, that those victims are being forced to participate in pornography. And man, it,
Yeah. We have on our on the eight part curriculum that I mentioned, the 8-part DVD set. What am I trying to say? The curriculum, the teaching
uh-huh,
that goes along with the film. It actually there are different guests on there. One of them is a lady who had been trafficked. One of them is an ex-porn star, a lady who had actually been an ex-porn star, and some of the things that they say are amazingly shocking. The lady who had been trafficked, who now works for the Tim Tebow Foundation, she said that porn was part of the whole thing. Like that's how they taught her how to work. That's how she said the guys that would come in. That's how that's what they saw is what they wanted. And so, as horrible as that sounds and terrible to talk about, it's an unfortunate truth, and very connected and very untalked about.
yes, yeah,
And so we got a lot of pushback when we decided to do this from everywhere, and everywhere, for everything from it's not a problem, don't why waste your time on that,
mm,
to while you don't want to do that, that'll ruin you, it'll ruin your career or whatever, and I don't
yeah,
know, that's motivating for us. We
right, yeah, no
push
kidding.
back, we're like, okay, this must be the right thing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, and I love it that you do have this curriculum, that you've got this tool available. It's available for churches to even see the movie, right? And then this curriculum that can go along with it. And I think there are a lot of pastors probably that are afraid to touch the subject,
Yes, yes,
right?
very
And so
much so.
what do you say to those pastors who they need it? I mean, almost 70% of men, almost 50% of pastors, come on, it's an issue. Obviously, it's an issue in the church that should be addressed in the church,
Yes.
because we should be loving each other that much that we're
Yeah.
not afraid to address it. So what do you say to pastors to make them know that they should have this in their church because it's readily available to them, and would be a good thing for them to do, but and then do it? What do you say to them?
I think it goes back to the definition between guilt and shame. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize. Guilt says, I did bad. Shame says, I am bad. I personally am bad. And so um, I think getting past that and getting past, hey, look, yeah, you are full of shame, we're all full of shame for different reasons, and so let's get past that and actually have an open conversation in a very trusted environment, in a group setting, and let's just talk. And I think when that happens, I think just the top comes off, the hinges come off, and I think it's just a healing begins. And seeing it over and over again, uh, and that's the way it really should happen. So I think it takes a pastor just with, I'm going to do it. I'm scared to death, but we're just going to do it. And I guarantee if you just take that step, go out on that limb, that it'll be a good thing.
Right, right. And I think too, if you, coming from a woman, from my point of view, right? Because certainly there are women that watch porn, but not the numbers that men do. And so there's a lot of women that are really hurt by porn if their husband is watching it regularly, if their husband's addicted to it, the fact that you can get addicted to it right away says this is not a good thing, right? I mean, I don't know that anything you get addicted to that is probably good and healthy for you. So, those women that also need support, the women need support because
Yes.
they're dealing with this with their husband. Do they go? Do they stay? They find out that this is an issue with their husband, and they've been wondering why their relationship isn't going so great. And so the women need support.
Yes.
The women
Absolutely.
need support. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole it's another whole discipline in the ministry to take care of the issue called betrayal trauma. And our partner Pure Desire actually has an entire half of their ministry is dedicated to betrayal trauma. One of the interesting shockers for me was I was talking with a woman once whose husband is just entrenched in it, and she thought it was her fault. And I I can barely talk about that without actually just not. I, hmm, I just told her, I said, that's not your fault. It's not your fault. And I don't know that she believed me, but
Mm.
yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's tough.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and if you want to be a church, like what is a church supposed to be? Sometimes that gets questioned, right? And is it supposed to just be wonderful praise and worship music on a Sunday morning and then, some message and then that's it? That's church? Or are we supposed to gather around each other and support each other and be there for each other and actually be a church instead of just go to a church? And this is an issue. And where else should it be addressed?
mm,
So, pastors, where would you have this be addressed if not in church?
yeah. That's a really good point because I think originally, and I'm talking 5 years ago, when we started this project, I really we really believed that our audience that we were aiming at was not the church, was outside the church. And through a lot of prayer, we have a prayer team, an undefiled prayer team that meets regularly. And through a lot of prayer and a lot of just thinking and soul searching and prayer, we we just discovered it's the church. The church is who we're aiming at. And it's like once we realized that, it was like, duh, yeah, it needs to start with the church. It really does. The, the church is the one that can heal everybody else outside the church, but the church has to be healed first. The church has to
Mhm.
be solid and not part time, like you said, praise and worshiping, and then going home and pulling out the porn. And so, um, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we can be really good at pointing out some sins. Adultery. That's an easy one. Beating your wife. That's an easy one. Whatever. And so those people, we're going to stand behind them and we're going to support them. And then other things that are just hidden, that are just, it's easier to not talk about them. And I love what you said about when you we're going to make it and people are like, oh my gosh, you're going to ruin yourself, you're going to ruin the world or whatever it is, and that's how you knew you needed to do it. And I think that that's true with this subject. It's like, yeah, it could be difficult, it could be really uncomfortable to bring the subject into the church, but man, it needs to be in every church, because it's rampant. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Some people, we've shown it in some churches, right? And screened it in churches. And I've had a few people who were almost upset with me. Were the one person I'm thinking actually was kind of upset. And I think it's just because it wasn't what they were expecting. I didn't want to think about that today. I didn't want to have to deal with that today. I just wanted to sit down and watch a movie. And don't get me wrong, for anybody who's watching, it is a very entertaining movie and it's fun to watch, but it does leave you with things to think about. And so I love it when we can screen it in a church and it just opens up a conversation. I had a couple go home and after watching it in a church and emailed somebody the next day and said, my husband and I have been talking a lot about that, since we watched it. And I said, well, there you go. That's the whole point of the whole project, is really just to stir things up and start conversations. And then we have a place for you to go too, after that. It's not just to
Yeah.
leave you stirred up.
Which is huge that there's a place to go. And it's huge. The tools are already out there. Nobody has to write something up. You don't have to write a sermon. You don't have to figure out how you're going to talk about it, because it's all been done for you and done with great wisdom behind it, and done the right way. So it's, what is it like though? Like, what would you say for a pastor who brings it in? Like, what are the steps? He decides he's going to bring this to his church and address it. And then is it once a week people meet and watch a video? Is it the whole church that watches it? Is it, if you want to come watch, how does that typically work in a church?
There's different ways to do it. Uh, our particular church is starting a men's group where we're going to go through it every month, and like, if there's eight parts, we'll just do an 8-month series on it. That works for us. That could work differently for every church, but we have actually a 1-day seminar where we can actually come and watch the film, do some breakout sessions with Dr. Wisman, really, really, really leave the entire church with stuff to talk about and a place to go. We could do lighter versions of that as well, and so it really depends on the church where they're at, or what point they're at. I think that the key though is that the tools are the same. The film that stirs things up and gets things started, and then the resources after that, those are the same. It's just a matter of like, how do we use that? And so I like to talk to a pastor and whoever is in charge and just say, what would you like to do?
Mm. Yeah. All right. Well, good. So people have choices,
Yeah.
uh, and whatever works for them and whatever works for their church and whatever. And ladies, tell your pastor that you need you need this in your church. Start talking to them, and because it's powerful and it's necessary and it's gonna change things.
Yeah.
It's gonna change things, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
And I think too, like the main character, the baseball player, that he didn't know the depths of the industry. He wasn't aware until he came face to face with it, and
Yeah.
that shook him to the core.
Yeah. It shook me to the core when I figured it out too. I mean, it's like the lady in our video series says, it's just part of it. Like they're not even inseparable. They go hand in hand. And
Mm. Yeah, I
people
know.
don't think that, and they don't understand it. And so yeah.
Yeah, I've got a daughter. I have a daughter, and I can't even imagine. Uh, I can't even imagine
No.
anybody having to live that life. And I mean, man, it just, I think, hits home even more when you have a daughter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's some of the we took hours of interview footage when we made the video series that goes along with the film, and of course, just a portion of that gets used, but some of the stories that are in that footage that got cut are just, you can't forget them. They're
Mhm.
from real life people that lived that life, and yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're real people. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's a good point right there, is that, you might feel removed from it because you don't know those people, you don't really even know their real names because they all go by whatever names, right? And so it just, they don't feel real because you see them on a screen, you see them on your phone, on your tablet, whatever, and you don't know them. So should you really care? But man, they're somebody's daughter,
Hmm.
right? They belong to somebody, and and they belong to us.
Yes.
We're all one family here, and they belong to God, and created in his image just like the rest of us. And man, things like this always, I don't know, I find uh, surprising in a way that the industry has gotten as far as it has, that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? I mean, it's gigantic industry. And so sometimes things get so big that they all of a sudden it's just this monster of a thing, and you think you can't do anything about it. But
Mhm.
but that's not the truth.
Right.
The truth is you can do something about it. You can do
Exactly.
your part in it. And the less people, the smaller the number of people that watch it, the less there's going to be. And if everybody stopped watching it, it wouldn't exist.
That's
And
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a line in the film that you may remember that one of the characters says, "You really want to do something," and I'm paraphrasing, but you really want to do something about this. Remove everything that creates the demand. There's
right.
no demand for it. There's no product, and
Hmm.
so that was one of the things about this project that instead of just well let's make people aware about let just awareness, let's go beyond just awareness and let's actually prick their heart because that's where the heart is where that demand comes from.
Hmm.
um, if with changed hearts comes less demand, and so that's yeah, that's what we would like to see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you had the guts to do this and do it so well that everybody should watch it, no matter your circumstance. Hopefully, porn's not a part of your life. And if it is, if it's not, it doesn't matter. Everybody should really see the movie, because it is eye opening, and it is heart wrenching, but it's also heartwarming because there are wonderful things that happen alongside the crappy things that happen. There's redemption, there's resilience, there's so many things, and it is, again, it is just so well done. It's quite an immersive experience to watch the movie, and so watch it. So everybody watch it, get a hold of it, watch it. I saw it on Amazon Prime, so I know it's there. But I'm sure, whatever, there's other places are reaching out to you, you can get it. But it can be difficult to deal with subjects like this, but somebody's got to do it. Like, if I always kind of think too, if not me, then who, right?
Yeah.
And so who's going to do it? And so again, thank you for having the guts to do it. So what's the future hold for you? Like, what are you working on now, or what's the next big thing that's really going to tick people off?
Oh wow. Ugh. Well, we're gonna do another film. I know that's for a fact. I don't know that everybody knows that's for a fact, but I want to do another film. Um, I don't know what the subject matter is yet. I think one of the things we learned from this one is um, we don't want our own will just saying, "Hey, let's just do that. Yeah, that'll be fun." Um, we really want to just pray about it and understand God wants you to use your talents this way for this subject. There and so when that comes along, we will definitely know and go for it. But love making movies are a lot of fun, but that's obviously not the point. The point is the message and changed hearts, and that's really that's what we're all about, and that's what we want to maintain. I said we were owned. Our company is actually owned by a church. We did that on purpose, just to maintain accountability of not going off the deep end and doing anything crazy or for raw motives and so forth. So yeah,
Yeah. 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 Well, yes, I love it. I have a subject for you. So,
I love
uh,
to hear it.
okay. Well, my husband passed away 15 years ago. And yeah, thanks everybody. Yes. Yeah. I would love to have him here. I don't have a choice. Heaven's a great place. So good for him. He was a wonderful guy. And but I went to a pastor in my church and I asked, what do you have for widows? Because the Bible many times talks about that it's part of our job to take care of widows and orphans. And when we were talking earlier about young men without a strong dad, without a good dad, that they're orphans.
Yeah.
And the single mamas, they're widows. I mean, this is who we're supposed to be taking care of. And so I approached this pastor and I said, well, what do you have? He ended up wanting to have coffee to talk about it. And I said, well, what about it? Do you have a widows group? Whatever. I'll start one if you don't have one, some sort of support. And he said, oh, no, 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 we could never do that because then they'd just all be hooking up. And I'm like, hooking up, whatever. I said, first of all, I said widows, not widows and widowers. And, I
Yeah.
don't think that they're all lesbian necessarily. So I don't think they're going to be hooking up. And, but I met so many widows because you know how you meet people that are in your same boat, right? That's who somehow you're gravitated to. And I met all these young widows with kids at home that gave up their career or put their career on hold so their husband could have his career and so they could stay home with kids. And then their husband dies. And what are they going to do? Go wait tables?
Yeah.
And he was making how much money? And so now their income's gone way down. And so now on top of it, do you have to move? Because now you can't afford to be in that house anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things that go to it, right? So then the kid not only loses his dad, but it loses his mom if she has to work nights, loses his friends because they have to change schools, they got to move. I mean, there's so much to it. And it's not just widows back in the day, it's widows today. And it's not just orphans back in the day, it's orphans today that are sitting in our pews in our churches. And I got to tell you, as a young widow, I would have loved, loved, loved to know a man who could meet with the mechanic for me
Yeah.
or know a guy I could call that I could say, oh my gosh, my hot water heater just stopped. And
Yeah.
uh, women get taken advantage of with stuff. And I think, that's part of the whole movie. You had Amber, the wife, who's raising these two kids with this pretty absent dad who didn't, granted, he didn't learn how to be a dad from his dad. That's obvious, and I get that. But still, here she is. She's really a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how the story goes. I mean, she's a single mom. And so she's a single mom and she doesn't even have money for groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the help for her?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Why
That scene, you're
Yeah,
talking about that scene,
man.
he's talking about his career. He wants to tell, hey, let's stop everything right now. Let's talk about this opportunity in front of me. And she's like, we don't have anything to eat. And she's taking care of that. And that's so beyond not fair. And it's so beyond the way it should be. And unfortunately, very true in
Yeah,
so many cases.
right,
Yeah, I
right.
totally hear
Yeah, yeah. So it's just interesting because again, it's sort of the same thing. It's them, it's not us, it's back then, it's in the screen, it's whatever. It's
you. Yes.
just, right?
Yes.
And it's not just. It's
Mhm.
not just. People are living these lives and sit in your next door neighbor, and man, if we really want to be the hands and feet of Jesus, we got to know who to be looking out for and who to be helping and have our eyes open to do it, and which is exactly what this film is all about and what this film does. And yeah, I love it too how you took a guy who was not in a great place but then ended up wanting to do whatever he could to help one person, to save one person's life.
Yeah. Yeah. That that spark, I guess, is what I'll call it. That spark really is the thing that kind of ignites the change in his life. If it hadn't been for that, I like the term circling the drain. You know, his life's just kind of circling the drain, and there's that spark that just in a decision, and it gives him a decision to make, and he has to deal with that. And so, uh, I wish that for any man that is just kind of living one of those just day to day, just get through, just get by, just make myself happy kind of lives, um,
Mhm.
something, anything that will get you to a place that says, wait a minute, this is not cool. This is not what I am created for sure. This is not what I want. And it's really not fair to my wife and my family. Um, there has to be a decision. I have to make a decision. It may be the wrong decision, but you at least have to get the opportunity to make the decision. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just show that whole thing so well in the movie. It just is so palatable, so real, and you feel it. You feel what both of them are feeling, and it's just it's hard.
Yeah.
It can be hard to watch stuff even in, fiction in a movie, but sometimes we need that. We need to be shooken up a little bit.
Yeah. And that's a tightrope that you walk when you go down a project like this. You want it to be approachable, and that's the whole reason for making it a movie in the first place, and not just let's just throw the curriculum out there, which is fine too. That's great, but the movie part of it, we think of it as a funnel actually, where the movie's kind of the wide top end of the funnel, and it's approachable. It's a movie. Everybody just will sit down and watch a movie. There's really no barrier to that, and whereas they wouldn't just sit down and grab a devotional or something maybe on the
Right.
subject. And so yeah, that's a big part of it. And then we further down in the funnel, we have these other resources. There's the curriculum, the group study, all the resources with Pure Desire and Boulder Recovery that they offer, which is massive amount of resources. And just pushing people down in further into that funnel, toward those resources is really what that's the
Yeah.
whole aim. That's the whole the strategy at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I pray that people that watch it, that that's what they do, is that they want to do more about it, that they don't just watch the movie and let it go, but that they do something, like if we all did something, the world would change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might say, well, I don't have a problem with that, and I don't really even know anybody that has a problem with that. Um, well, okay, fine. Like you said, get involved. Still, I mean, there's things you could do. Because I just bet you probably do know somebody that does have a problem, or you might be somebody who's recovering, or somebody who's a wife who's dealing with it. It's like you said, it's everywhere, and so yeah, you can be a friend. That's huge. Just supportive and a Christian friend. Um, there for somebody. That's so necessary. And so, yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but yeah, but you can do something. And on the trafficking side too, I don't know what to do. I hear all this stuff on the news. I don't know what to do. Well, um, I would say let's lessen the demand for it. Let's go the other direction. Let's go to the bottom end instead of the top end. And
Hmm.
so, and that's just a matter of doing the same thing, mentoring people and befriending them and
Yeah, so true. Well, and the other thing that it does is that, I do a lot of work. I run a nonprofit organization, and I do a lot of work in Haiti and Burkina Faso and Dominican Republic, different places like that. And one thing that I learned time and time and time again is you cannot outgive God.
mm,
Like you go, you feel like you're going to serve, you're going to help, whatever. What you get in return 100% of the time, hands down, is more than what you can ever spill out, ever. And so it is healthy mentally, physically. It's healthy in every way to get outside yourself and help somebody else. And when you do, I don't know, God's magic, right? I mean, it
yes,
just comes back. It's like the fishes and the loaves, they just never run out,
yes,
it's abundance. And so when you stay inside your little world and cut yourself off and only think about yourself, it can be easy to get depressed and and lonely and all the things you don't want to be. So getting outside yourself and helping somebody with something somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love the example of the fish and the loaves. We've actually in our prayer, our undefiled prayer groups have used that example so many times when making the movie, feeling inadequate, feeling like, this, we can't do this, we can't go on, we can't finish this, whatever. And little boy, that was probably his family's dinner, some fish and some loaves. It might have been their food for the week. I don't know. It wasn't much, and it certainly wasn't enough to feed 5,000 people. And so, but he just like, this is what I got. So here you go, and look at what Jesus did with it. And so, it's the same thing. It's exactly what you're talking about. I don't have much. I got this Saturday afternoon. I can go over to this guy's house. Yeah, do it because you know what Jesus is going to do with it. So yeah, I love that. That's great.
yeah, yeah, so true. I love that you have a prayer group that
Mhm.
meets, and I love that the whole thing is being carried in prayer, and that you know the example of the fishes and the loaves, because this is the kind of movie that's what's going to happen is
Mhm.
that uh, you think it's going to be one thing and it's going to be so much more than you can imagine, right? Because God's
Yeah,
kind of cool that way, just
yeah.
honors your prayers and honors the work that you've done, and so thanks again. I appreciate it. I appreciate this conversation. I cannot wait, Matthew, to see what you do next. I'm excited to see. I'm excited because I like it that you're not afraid, that you're just gonna do it. If God tells you go, you're gonna go, and I admire that. I like that.
But
So
now I didn't say I wasn't afraid. It's terrifying at times, but yeah, it's just a matter of if this is what we're supposed to do, then we need to do it. So yeah.
mhm, mhm. So again, if people want to get the materials, get whatever, where should people go to
Yes.
find something?
Yeah, so you can go watch the movie on Amazon Prime, on Tubi for free, or on Apple TV. So there's several popular places there. You can actually go watch the movie. The website livingundefiled.com. You can get that's a great place to start for you get the materials there, and it'll point you to other places as well. And so those would be the things I would probably leave people with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and those are easy things to remember because all you have to got to remember is the movie is called Undefiled, and you'll be able to find it and look it up and whatever. And yeah, and on the website for your production company, you have great information on there, and the substitute is on there as well, things that you've done, and this has been nominated for a lot of awards, winning awards. It should, because it's that kind of quality and it's that kind of impact. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for being here, for all the hours, years, and hours that you put into the film. That I know is going to just help so many people.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to tell people about it and just spread the word, and I appreciate that very much.
All right. Okay. And thank you for joining us. And until next week, be blessed.